No matter how the cachet of the WNBA elevates, remember, it could have been even better. You messed it up. You messed it up.
The WNBA might have changed forever if Caitlin Clark had accepted an offer from Europe.
I am never going to financially recover from this.
With Caitlin Clark's relocation to Europe appearing closer, the WNBA is acting quickly. Maybe you ought to have thought about being a little more civil to your big star now. The WNBA will suffer greatly as a result of Caitlin without CC. Who would watch?
I know she will do her best. I know she's talented, but she's not strong enough and she doesn't have enough experience right now to compete at this.
These are the people you don't have the experience to run the WNBA. Caitlin had to cope with all season long. Take a look at what transpired. The WNBA was in chaos after she blasted her way through broken records like there was no tomorrow.
Nonsense about things that Caitlin was doing wrong when, in my personal opinion, she was doing nothing but going out there and playing great basketball every night and ignoring the hate that was coming to her from all sides, not only from
Caitlin had no other choice, according to these analysts. The constant animosity directed at her is sufficient. She needs a fresh start in a league that truly appreciates its top players and doesn't exclude them.
And look at what the NBA became. Even when Jordan was ascending and the league clearly saw that that was the dude, and Nike was marketing the living hell out of Michael Jordan. I want to be like Mike. It was still Bird and Magic.
Caitlin Clark reportedly received an amazing contract offer to perform in Europe. There is more to the story, even if it seems like she is ready to accept it. In spite of all the recognition, appreciation, and undeniable influence she has had on the game, Caitlin Clark has had numerous difficulties in the WNBA. From the absence of appropriate support on the court to the league's incapacity to sufficiently safeguard its best players. These difficulties have led to what may be among the most startling job choices in history. At last, Caitlin has had enough of the WNBA's treatment of her, and she is ultimately deciding to quit the league after going through countless frustrations. The WNBA might be rocked to its foundation by the shockwaves that would result from her departure. Caitlin Clark's choice to quit the WNBA and relocate to Europe. Caitlin Clark has obviously had enough. We have repeatedly seen rival players go overboard with aggressive and occasionally dangerous play while protecting Clark, getting away with employing excessive aggression, yet she hasn't always received the attention and consideration that a celebrity of her caliber merits from the WNBA. It seems as though the league has allowed these practices to persist, whether it is through the player's persistent targeting, the lack of protection on the court, or the league's seeming indifference.
Making a basketball argument. You were making a basketball argument.
We're not saying we were making a basketball
No, Andrea, I'm not going to let you do that.
Go ahead,
Andrea, I'm not going to let you make it seem like Caitlin Clark was averaging 5 points a game. At the time, she was still averaging 16 points a game, which was more than a lot of other guards that made the team. So don't do that. Don't make it seem like she was averaging 5 points and this was like a handout.
No, it wasn't a handout.
Look at her numbers. Look at her numbers comparable to the other guards that were on the team. That's all I'm saying.
Since the WNBA is aware that Clark's presence on the court draws attention and boosts viewing, you might even claim that they have let this behavior to continue. Ultimately, a little drama sparks conversation. However, the lack of protection has gone too far for Caitlin. Supporters of her have been calling for greater protection, equity, and respect for their favorite player on social media, and fans have taken notice. However, not much has changed. It seems as though the league didn't care enough to make the required adjustments, and Clark feels abandoned.
For watching women's basketball right now, it all started from the national championship game, and I've been dealing with this for 2 years now. And understanding, like, yeah, negative things have probably been said about me, but honestly, I'll take that because look where women's basketball is. People are talking about women's basketball, but you never would think that we'd be talking about women's basketball. I'll look back in 20 years and be like, yeah, the reason why we watching women's basketball is not just because of one person, it's because of me too, and I want y'all to realize.
And after enduring season after season of unfair treatment and targeting, Caitlin Clark is at last paying attention to her followers. She has decided to take control of her career by quitting the WNBA because she has had enough of the league's disregard. Clark is looking for a new chapter where her extraordinary talent, enthusiasm, and impact on the game will be acknowledged as they have long been. Now let's talk about the repercussions. There's no need to sugarcoat the fact that a major downturn in the WNBA is imminent, and the reason for this is that they failed to recognize Caitlin Clark's critical role in the league's success. The WNBA would instantly suffer financially and in terms of viewership without Clark. Everyone watched Caitlin Clark whenever she was on the court since she was a major attraction for the league, regardless of whether they were casual watchers or ardent basketball fans. Caitlin.
Fact that she was getting all of that, yet all of these eyeballs were coming to the league because of her. The Indiana Fever was turning away games into home.
Her departure has left the WNBA with the enormous job of filling the hole. Indeed, the league does have other gifted players like DJ Carrington and Angel Ree, but let's be honest, they lack the power and charisma that Clark offered to the game. Their talent is not being diminished in any way. Although both are amazing athletes, Caitlin Clark was performing at an entirely different level. She wasn't merely a participant, she was an inspiration. Additionally, the WNBA wasn't the only attraction. Her daring shooting skill to dominate games and her competitive nature drew them in, making her an athlete to watch. The WNBA is just now seeing the full scope of the Caitlin Clark effect. Millions of cash would be lost from TV partnerships, sponsorships, ticket sales, and merchandise if Clark were to leave. All of this will have a significant negative impact, and worse, it was preventable. The league had every chance to treat Caitlin with the deference she deserved as its spokesperson, protecting her on the court and giving her the support she required. However, they were unsuccessful.
Draft day viewership, which is up 400% to 40%. Between ticket sales, which is up 93% to 16%. Between regular game viewership, which is up 180% to 20%. What Caitlin Clark has done is grown the WNBA exponentially. She did in 5 weeks what would have taken 5 years. And as it pertains to draft viewership, she did in 5 days.
They will now be held accountable for allowing issues to get worse. The WNBA will soon discover the extent of their losses. As a result, Caitlin's exit is a sea change that might have catastrophic consequences for the league's future in Europe. What particularly has been promised to Caitlin Clark? The astounding amounts that are being thrown around would stop anyone cold. Several sources claim that the contract she was promised is far greater than anything the WNBA has ever provided. In the EuroLeague, where players are treated like kings, a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity is being given to Caitlin. She made the decision to move overseas almost instinctively, since she would not only be making a lot more money, but also have the benefit of playing less games, which would allow her more time to relax, recover, and perform at her peak.
Be a team overseas who would love to snatch Caitlin Clark away from us and give her a crazy offer. I mean, Ice Cube was about to give her $5 million to play in less than 10 games. And
Europe is not only providing Caitlin with a contract, but also the chance to represent the entire league. Imagine thousands of fans cheering loudly as Caitlin enters the court and the lights go down. Every roar from the audience reverberates throughout the stadium as she steps up to take a deep three, demonstrating the tangible energy in those packed arenas. But things are different this time. Watching a basketball game isn't the only reason the fans are there. They're supporting her. Knowing this, the EuroLeague is prepared to use her as their brand ambassador and treat her like the global superstar that she is. How does it feel? Are you concerned? Europe providing Caitlin with a new platform to dominate is not the primary goal. Making her the biggest basketball star in the world is another goal. Europe is ready to make sure that Caitlin Clark shines brighter than ever as she gets ready to enter a new age of stardom, with arenas full of devoted fans who cheer and admire every move she makes. However, she is not alone in achieving noteworthy progress. The same path is being followed by other WNBA players who are starting to look for greater opportunities. For example, it has been reported that Caitlyn is traveling to Europe, while Melissa Smith and Kelsey Mitchell have decided to spend their off-season playing in China, as WNBA players realize that playing overseas not only offers significantly higher pay, but also better treatment overall. They are progressively following this trend. The WNBA's salary scale just cannot compete with what other international leagues are offering in terms of experience, quality, and money.
All of this comes together, and you need a star, and she is the star.
Players like Melissa, Kelsey, and Caitlyn are benefiting from more wages, more rest, and fewer games. When you compare the schedule, pay, and player care provided abroad, playing internationally becomes practically a no-brainer. It's simple to see why more sportsmen are going down this route. As all of this is happening, Jason Whitlock thinks Caitlyn ought to lead an unmatched league, which the top players face off against one another during the WNBA's offseason. As a result, athletes like Melissa Smith and Kelsey Mitchell would no longer have to fly overseas in order to get paid. Instead, they can earn a living in America thanks to a league that is unmatched in talent. Players will have more opportunities as a result, and they will be able to capitalize on the growth in women's tennis potential. We still have some amazing prospects in the works. They will not be paid what they are entitled to. Rather, they will need to rely on sponsorships to make their money. However, Caitlin Clark and the WNBA are given a completely new perspective by this unmatched league concept. This change ought to be a huge wake-up call for women's basketball. In addition to Caitlin Clark, the league faces a significant risk of losing other elite players. The WNBA may experience a mass exodus of talent if they don't take action and reconsider how they pay and handle its players. It is obvious that players can no longer accept fewer victories. They can get a lot more from international leagues. The WNBA must reevaluate its goals if it hopes to prevent an even greater talent drain in the future and quickly.
Molly, I said...
Really, Molly? Wow.
Really?
The fact that the WNBA didn't seem to make a serious effort to keep Caitlin Clark may be the most startling part of this whole situation. Nothing was done to demonstrate her value to the league, not even a major offer or gesture. Rather, they made the confusing choice to essentially let her go without a fight. Even though Clark was a once-in-a-generation talent with the potential to become the biggest star in American sports, the WNBA let her get away with it for a league that has been putting a lot of effort into growing its fan base and competing on a larger scale. This is a huge error.